What a nutty day of news, folks. I cannot wait to get stuck in. White and grey items will soon be transmoggable. I think I know what the release date of 10.0.5 is, and that isn't even the most exciting thing. So let's get stuck in. Chris Metzen has rejoined Blizzard. He has joined the Warcraft leadership team as a creative advisor. He is initially going to be focusing on World of Warcraft, before he then expands his work out to other projects in the Warcraft franchise. Yeah, kind of crazy. I mean, Chris was there at the very start making this universe in 1994, the year of my birth, so hell yeah that he's back. Now, since Chris left the company, WoW's creative direction has been all over the place. His time toward the end was mostly occupied with Overwatch, and in his absence things were briskly led astray by creative director Alex Afrasiabi, who, kind of led the whole burning of Teldrassil thing. Oh boy. It's actually quite telling that the Battle for Azeroth cinematic, the one that was the, big reveal one, that was the last thing Chris Metzen worked on before he left Blizzard apparently. And it was the tone of WoW to a T. Very much unlike the actual BFA expansion. This was only just announced by WoW's general manager Jonathan Haidt, so pretty exciting stuff. First though, let's pay the bills with today's sponsor. NordVPN.com/Bellular Gaming, today's sponsor, which is available at my link with an exclusive deal and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Plus, Nord actually do a lot more. Now, why would you want to get a VPN? Well, for me, it's obviously pretty simple. Often I want to watch some media content that is, funnily enough, not available in the UK. But I actually recently saw another example of this, you can almost call global arbitrage, where Tom Scott was able to save himself hundreds of pounds on rental cars. Because it turns out rental car providers can kind of extort you if you're renting in your destination country. So he just VPN'd back home and got the deal. So that's awesome, but also security and privacy. Your ISP will not know what sites you're using. They can't sell your browsing data to advertisers, nor can they prioritize some of the sites that you're using over others. Of course, they've also got Nord Locker for storage and Nord Pass for your passwords, which is such a time saver. Of course, their app and browser extension are all super easy for you to use, and you can get the exclusive offer at nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, thanks to them for supporting our team for so long, and let's get into the video. My thoughts on Metzen then. Honestly, I'd say this is overall a good thing. I do not think that Metzen is going to be hardcore writing for World of Warcraft, but I do think that he's going to be there to perhaps ensure that Warcraft continues to be a brand that resonates with the sorts of audiences that it initially resonated with, right? Even just being able to bounce ideas off Chris Metzen, I think, will be a fairly high-value thing for the Warcraft team. At the end of the day, he pretty much created this IP, so he does know a fair bit about it. Now, Chris's previous role within Blizzard Entertainment was one that did cover many aspects of the company, right? So he was leading stuff in StarCraft 2. From the creative side, he had a major influence there. He had a major influence creatively, of course, on Project Titan. So there was a span of time where the likes of, say, Afrasiabi actually were doing quite a lot within the World of Warcraft team, but still technically below Metzen when Metzen was involved in the failed successor MMO to World of Warcraft, Project Titan. That, of course, failed. It was cancelled. It was then reborn into Overwatch, which I imagine took up a fair amount of Metzen's time, considering it was from the ashes of what would be Blizzard's next big MMO. Overall then, I think that, well, from what I've heard from talking to people, Afrasiabi was truly getting a little bit off the rails with alcoholism and stuff. Obviously there's harassment, etc. that was going on too. This was kind of reaching a real tipping point towards the, in BFA. And of course, as we heard from Ian in the interview with Mike, with Preach, if a World of Warcraft expansion comes out now, the next World of Warcraft expansion is already in pre-production and will soon be entering full production. That does mean that with Afrasiabi getting the boot in and around patch 9.1, he basically would have been there from the start of, from the very start, the very core, the essence of Shadowlands. This is not to put all the blame on him, though. I do think that you could have taken the clusterfuck that he left behind as creative director, and I do think you could have significantly done better with that than what was actually done with embarrassing characters like the Jailer and the entire complete self-defeating positioning of the Jailer being the end of the first book of Warcraft. Absolutely silly stuff, but if they are considering it to be the start of a new book of Warcraft, then I am bloody glad that the person who was involved in the very creation of this franchise is there, and that he is not going to be working on other Blizzard projects, that he is creative consultant for Warcraft, WoW specifically, and that's his whole job, so hopefully it will get his whole focus and not just be, you know, him and Steve having one email a week. But I don't get the impression it's that. Okay, big good stuff. 10.0.5 then, let's talk. Dragonflight's first patch is on the public test realm, as we covered in this previous video. It will include the new trading post system. Some people tell me it's a battle pass. If you think that, no. Have you played a game with a battle pass? I would say. Do you know what one actually operates like? They are a different thing. They are almost always a paid thing, where you basically have to grind up through all of the levels, and then there's an optional purchase called a tier skip that lets you then skip through the tiers of the battle pass. So this does not work like that. It is a 100% unmonetized feature currently. I mean, beyond the obvious of having a WoW subscription, and it overall does seem to be a pretty damn high effort thing for what it is. I mean, if you're going to call this a battle pass, then the Final Fantasy XIV like Moogle event thing would also count as a battle pass, so I don't know. Definitions. I think we should at least try to stay accurate with them. That being aside, though, there are some other new features that are great. First up, white and grey gear can be transmogged, and it will be made bind on equip, which does mean that if you... oh my god, what a money-making opportunity. I assume this will just be the new ones that drop will be BOE, and that you probably couldn't start to hoard them now. If you could start to hoard them now, that would be pretty damn wild, and certainly lots of people will be working out farming locations and things like that for these pieces of gear. Overall, this is fantastic for people who want to have less of a high-key transmog, which is good. You know, you look at a Stormwind Soldier, a Stormwind Citizen, and then you look at some, you know, glowing, fiery Christmas tree of a character. It's not what some people want. Also, enchant illusions can now be applied to artifact weapons, and Warlords of Draenor crafted item appearances are back in the game. Yes, thankfully. You can purchase recipes for optional reagents for each profession from the vendors in your garrison or ashran using secrets of whatever your profession is tomes. Then these can be used during crafting, and when they are, they will change the appearance of the WoD-crafted gear, giving you some options, so that's awesome. There's also a new toy, the reusable oversized bobber. You get this by catching 100 fish with the oversized bobber, so basically I guess it just lets you perma have that. I'm fairly sure though that the new interact key works with fishing, so that would be a big win, and I think you can use that right now. There's also a massive set of class changes, too many to cover in this video, honestly. We will do a TLDR with some insight from members of our team who play each of the impacted classes in fairly short order. My TLDR opinion, though, is it is really nice to see this amount of response to class feedback so quick. It truly is in a way that we have not generally seen in recent expansions. Okay, the trading post then. It has a bunch of new items. This is interesting. So these include the Azure Scale Sworn Longbow for 200, an Operative's Bandolier for 250, Shard of Frozen Secrets for 200, Ensemble Swashbuckling Buccaneers Slops for 650, Fetid Bouquet for 100, the Vagabond's Rosy Threads Ensemble for 100. So I guess that's a kind of like, I guess more of a though fantasy like vagabond ensemble, which I think is really cool. There's the Wanderer's Rosy Trappings for 100, the Celestial State, which is a storm out for 100, the Fury of the Fire Lord for 750, so that'll be awesome. Garlock for 750, there's the Infiltrator's Bandolier for 250, Shattered Voidspire for 500, Rosy Corsage for 100, Iridescent Warcloak for 75, that could be kind of neat, Squire's Warhammer for 1,000, and Ash Adar, Harbinger of the Dawn for 999, which is pretty much a full month's. Now, WoW had of data mined some Sun and Moon Warden armor with their matching mount, and I mean, goddamn, what an incredible set of rewards these are. They look awesome. Now, the mount sets have been data mined, but they don't appear to be on the store. We're not sure. The Harbinger does cost 999 tender, though. That's a month's worth. So interesting. Will these appearances release like across 2 subsequent months or something? I'm not sure. And for this armor, I really love the like open waist cloak thingy. We don't get that really too often. Awesome. At the very least, this system is a really nice delivery vector for some fantastic rewards and options that players will enjoy. And also, you know, there's so many things in the game that, like, they literally exist in the game, but there's no way of getting them. Blizzard can slap all those things into this too, which would be quite handy. Now then, how do we earn the currency? Okay, I'll give you a TLDR rather than just dryly, like, do a big list. So, there are several objectives related to completing tasks and activities on the Dragon Isles. These include things like the Grand Hunts and group dragon riding races, using the buddy system when climbing, and participating in the Tuskar Community Feast, getting that hot soup. There's also objectives related to professions like fulfilling public crafting orders, completing weekly gathering quests. There's also ones with like interacting with other players, like using happy pet snacks, showing love via /love to trading post NPCs and dragons, fishing with friends. There's objectives related to the Love is in the Air event, so it's nice that these will be tied into the seasonal events. I think that will make those feel more rewarding, so that's really good. The Love in the Air ones include having a romantic picnic, killing a specific NPC, and some quest completion. Other ones include defeating creatures during Primalist storms, completing side quests like optional storylines, looting the war mode supply chests. There's also some things related to the hatching of the Hippogriffs event, which is interesting to me because that's one of those mini events that generally doesn't have much of a reward. So this is a nice way of them actually finally making some use of that event. Then finally, there are some objectives related to interacting with other players, like rezzing them, and even hugging players. I believe there's also going to be ones for dungeon and raid content as well. Now, overall, these objectives that I've listed here earn from like 50 to 200 tender. There's the whole like log UI to present you with all of this. And to be honest, I think just the way that it's a bar that fills up, I think that's what's got people thinking it's a battle pass. It's really just a UI thing, though, in the same way that people call Renown a battle pass. Even though Renown is absolutely not a battle pass, it's just using 1 or 2 similar UI cues, I would presume, to speak to a more modern audience. Now, your total cap for this Trader's Tender currency is 1,000 per month. You can generate 500 automatically, and then the rest you earn via these objectives that I've talked about here. As an example, filling a public crafting order for 200 seems really generous, but I do wonder if that will be, because it's a public crafting order, be a bit more weighed towards those like very difficult crafts that require very high skill, because anything else that doesn't require soul-bound mats will generally just be on the auction house. But I then wonder, could you create like really easy crafting orders that are public and then just do them to like game the objective? Who knows? Anyway, overall, seems decent. The cap does seem like it's designed less to nudge people into new types of content and more just to reward them for playing the things that they're already interested in doing. If you were earning way more tender, then it would be incentivizing you to do things that you don't particularly want to do, and that's something that Blizzard certainly do seem to be a lot more against these days. Of course, with all of this stuff, you can freeze one item in the store. So let's just say there's 1,500 tender worth of items that you want. You can only generate 1,000 a month. Well, the good news for you then is that's okay. You can freeze one of the items to next month. You obviously do not have to buy anything in a month, and you will accrue that tender over time. So who knows, right? You'll be able to build up a stockpile of it anyway. Let's talk about the release date. It has not been announced, but it kind of may as well have been. Here's why. They added an achievement for doing the Lunar Festival Elders on the Dragon Isles. Now that festival starts January 20th, which, I mean, it would make no sense for them to put this achievement in and then have the patch come out after that. And when you look at the rest of the patch broadly, it seems to be things like traders and their supporting items, a set of reversed race courses as well. We found that out via the achievements, which is kind of neat. But broadly speaking, it just seems to be class changes, trader post system. So it seems they're really trying to get that just bam in there really quick. I mean, this is awesome. If this is here, like 1.5 months after the game's launch, that's awesome. I mean, this is a sizable enough feature, and it is a feature that won't just last for the duration of a patch. This is a feature that will last 5 years, 10 years, something like that. It'll just keep on going. So this is a baseline feature added to WoW, which is totally in line with the broad expectation, the sort of theme of this expansion, which has been that of building foundations. Now, here's what Holly Longdale said. She is the executive producer and vice president of Warcraft. It's a pretty bullish tweet, right? But you might think, oh, it's a load of BS from an executive. One of my followers thought that as well. I explained what I thought it was, and I suppose, look, I have really enjoyed Dragonflight. I thought they've been saying good things and actually backing them up, so I'm definitely willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I said what I thought she meant, and she replied to someone who replied to my tweet by saying this, right? Or this exactly, something like that. And if you take a look at what I said, I mean, I make it very clear that it is acknowledging disappointment and under-delivery. So that she said this is good. And I'm sure, look, we would all want a Yoshi P style straight apology, where Yoshi P will be doing a live letter and will generally be pretty real about stuff. What do we get with Blizzard? Well, we kind of get those weird round table things where everyone just agrees with each other while one of the cameras cuts to one of the developers nodding to the other developer, and it feels really bizarre. That's the Blizzard style. It's not that great. The live letters, I mean, man, they're a ropey production. But there's a bit of heart in that. And it does mean that Yoshi P can just say, oh yeah, we're sorry about this, big fuck up. They can't really do that. So I would say that this is as close to one of those apologies that we're likely to get. It certainly acknowledges in a way that them bombastically talking about the jailer being the end of the, first book of Warcraft or whatever. It feels a lot more real than that. I think it definitely reflects well on her, especially when, I suppose, one could certainly say that I am a bit of a controversial individual, given my very strong, repeated criticisms of Shadowlands and BFA, and I'm blocked by plenty of people in the team. So I would say, props to her. It's nice to see that there's a willingness to engage there, and that also will, I suppose, reflect well on the people who watch this channel, perhaps agree with things that I say. So I just see that as a really good bit of community outreach, and of course, I am giving them the benefit of the doubt here because they're words are thus far being backed up by actions, and that's what matters. Miscellaneous things. Right, recent times have not been without drama. Here's the blue post that brought the drama to the end, and I'll summarize it. Recently, they found a bug that let tailors bypass profession cooldowns. They fixed this bug, and they punished people who exploited it a lot, per their data. But after an outcry, they realized they were way too generous with the ban hammer. Many thought that this, basically, that the behavior they were engaging in was normal, because them exploiting what should have been on a cooldown wasn't really reflected in the UI when the cooldown wasn't working. So Blizzard have now actually lifted most suspensions, only keeping the most serious ones. And they say this has also made them think about improving the crafting user interface and tooltips for a future update. To this one, I'll make my statement simple. Big friggin' oof, guys. You definitely cannot misfire on something like this, especially on an expansion month. It is good that they have turned around these very over-generous bans, but a bit of a rough situation. If something just works the way that it does in a game and a user doesn't feel like they're exploiting or wouldn't even know that they're exploiting, you've got to be generous, because ultimately it's only happening because you let the exploit ship. What else then? Well, I'll round things up. There's a deal where the game actually comes with a free month now if you buy Dragonflight, and they've also recently changed Recruiter Friend to include players who have a sub lapsed for more than a year. And honestly, my read here is that this expansion's not sold well. You might think, wow, what a hypocrite you are. The expansion hasn't sold well, but you're here saying it's really good. What gives? Well, yeah, I mean, no shit. Blizzard have not announced sales figures. If they had good figures, they would talk about them. When Shadowlands had its big launch, they talked about, oh, this has sold through the most games by, release day in PC gaming history. And then Cyberpunk 2077 happened and totally swallowed that. As for the why here, I don't think this is not sold well because it's not a great expansion. I think it's because Blizzard utterly busted their reputation. I mean, patch 9.1 is one of the worst patches in the game's history. It also happened at the same time that the absolute dam burst on the Blizzard drama, and they had generally fostered to be honest, a community perception that had them coming off like pig-headed morons. I'm not calling them that. I'm saying that is how they came off towards the community because of a combination of obviously, design decisions, but then also a lack of communication that then engendered a perception in the community because they were being met by a wall of silence. And that's the sort of thing that they've got to cut through. That's why I was happy to see that tweet response from Holly as an example. So my view here is that World of Warcraft actually has a bright future. Its future, seemingly as we learn more info about this expansion, is getting brighter and brighter and brighter, but I do think that getting that back is going to take time. Also, from a marketing perspective, the marketing of this was just World of Warcraft, dragons are cool, everyone's happy, wahoo, adventure. Now, to a bunch of us that stuck around with Shadowlands, stuck around just really for me because of like a little bit of obviously having a tie to the game, having friends who are still in the game, and to be honest, enjoying Season 4 quite a bit. But we see that and we're like, oh, awesome. Finally, this is the opposite of the tone we haven't liked. And to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who just sees an advertisement, they're like, what? I mean, Warlords of Draenor had a big explosion, a sweaty orc that said freedom, right? He may as well have screamed, America, fuck yeah, rock, flag, and eagle. In terms of like the core messaging of WoD, it was so strong. Like that, it was uber Metzen, that trailer, right? Like that got people fired up. Whereas what's this? Woo! A bunch of elves, a bunch of dragons. Dragons who have been pretty underdeveloped in the actual game. Now, I'm not saying that any of those things are bad things. I'm just saying that it's not Arthas. It's not seeing that awesome Deathwing cinematic. I've really liked the cinematics for Dragonflight, by the way, but to a bunch of people who are not engaged, who like left during BFA, didn't play Shadowlands, and they're like, so what, we went from the roof exploding, the world completely changing, to now just a new thing with dragons? What? I don't care, I don't know. So, my overall opinion, my overall thesis is that I am extremely bullish on the future of World of Warcraft, given what 2023 seems to be. I mean, we do expect a Mage Tower-like feature, we expect a revamp of the archaeology profession, amongst other things, of course. I'm very bullish on WoW's future. I do think, though, they need to stop, gather themselves, proceed on in a new and good way. I think that the Dragonflight expansion absolutely represents that. I have enjoyed the start of this more than Legion because, to be honest, I thought that artifact weapons were a pretty damn weak system. I thought they were really cool from a fantasy perspective, but I didn't like that shit. Now, though, all I can say is everyone I know, and we were literally some of the most angry and publicly angry people about Shadowlands and BFA. The very same people, when they're actually, now with me playing the game, we're having an absolute ball. We can barely believe that the times have got this good this quick. So I think the future's bright, but the foundations need to be established, and once they have been established, we then need an expansion that has got a very clear and obvious marketing hook. That will get a lot of people in, and I would certainly say that Chris Metzen is, having him around, perhaps he just has a strong intrinsic sense of what gives you that kind of like fist pump, fuck yeah, Blizzard epic thing, and if that can be brought to the game, because, things maybe got a little bit soft, the lore's maybe got a little bit uber detail oriented, maybe we need to move things back into the sort of vision that caused this game universe to have a absolutely meteoric rise. So, there's my thoughts. That's the end of the video. If you'd like more videos, you can check out our Dragon series, and there will be many more coming over the following days, weeks, and months, because goddamn, we are, I'm backing up my general thesis on the old World of Warcraft with action, and we will be investing, we will be making plans, and I think they'll turn really good. Okay, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.